Hitting record in 3, 2, 1, click. Hi team, welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. To merge or not to merge? That is today's question. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 205, who is about to be merged into an escape pod to broadcast the show. And with me, as always, in an unmerged state is Seema. I don't know what that means, but hi Seema, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm happy that I'm in an unmerged state. That sounds really good.
Know what you would be merged with, but that's good.
This week in SWTOR, well, the first thing is on in our Greater Guild AIE this week is our Summer of Love week, which every year we celebrate with events and all different games. And Tuesday night was our mandatory fun night special Summer of Love edition, which we started by going to Hoth. And we had our pancake contest, which means that Apollos went first and found a really high spot, and he jumped off, and then everyone else had to jump off, and whoever landed closest to him got a prize. And it was he gave out a couple of mounts that were very nice mounts.
Yeah,
Plus
platinum mounts, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool
Because
from
that's
his
the kind of guy that
collection.
Apollos is. Then we went to Korriban and we did our own version of an old AIE standby called Running of the Beefcake. And we had everybody made new level 1 type 4 characters and named them something with beef in their names. And oh my gosh, they were so creative. And then we walked from the starting point, like where you come out and there's the mailbox and everything. So everybody ran across Korriban to the academy, or the far side of it, and that was really fun. That was way more fun than I expected it to be. And we got a little attention from General too, like so much beef, which it was a lot of beef.
That's pretty cool. I'm
And
sad I missed that.
then we went to. Wait, did we go to Deborah's Courtyard, or was that after? Yeah, we went to Deborah's Courtyard, and for some reason, oh, I know why. Okay, we went to Deborah's Courtyard after that because we thought now we should just go kill some stuff. And we got inside, and you know how with Deborah's Courtyard you can't get out of combat because you've been shooting the canisters? Well, I forgot I had unequipped my weapons because I was trying to duel Zen, and he was like the level 1, beefcake guy. So I took off my weapons because I was going to punch him, because I didn't want to shoot him. So we got inside and I didn't have my weapons, and I was gonna go outside and equip my weapons, and then Corley reminded me that I wouldn't be able to get back in. I said, well, let's just pull, if we wipe, then we all have to go outside anyway. And so we pulled, and it was fine because Zen was there healing, and also someone else was there healing, so it didn't really matter that I wasn't healing that much. But I was surprised to be reminded of just how many abilities don't work on a merc if you don't have weapons equipped. Like defensive cooldowns, my 2 bubbles don't work. About half my heals didn't work.
Yikes.
So, yeah, but it worked out fine. I mean, Taboros Courtyard. It's not like we've never done it before, but it was a really fun evening. So I want to thank everyone who came. It's just, you guys are the coolest, and yeah, it was totally fun.
Yeah, I'm really sorry I missed it. I had a crazy work week, and that was one of the things. I was working late that night, doing a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, I would have liked to be there. Did we get recordings of it? I'm sure somebody was probably streaming it, right? I can look it up on maybe Corley. Was Corley streaming it? Somebody let me know.
Well, we do have some screenshots. And
Good.
Apples has reminded me that the 2 speeders were an Inferno Devourer and a Dazzler DS4.
Nice.
was very
Inferno
good.
Devourer. I think
And
I
then we
might
went
have
to
one of those.
Apolos's. Oh, right, when we were still in the Beefcake Well, I was just in my own form, but we went over to Apple's Stronghold and we played on the dance floor there. And we also gave out prizes there. Not for dancing, just for being just for being there and being cool.
Excellent. Well, yeah, that's awesome. So we'll talk a little bit more about other stuff that went on this week and why as part of the guild stuff. But just a quick update from me. Did a lot of fun things. Some other stuff on Wednesday for part of the guild week that I'll talk about. I did do some fun stuff tonight, though, also. So I flew a little GSF this week. Not a lot, but enough to get my weekly done on my trooper. I also, though, tonight I had fun finally getting back in there. The second kill on... The second one-shot for us on Esne and Avela. Avela's got a sort of a sweet demeanor. I was just realizing tonight. I was listening to them talk, and Esne's real, I'm gonna devour you and eat your bones, and Avela's more like, yeah, you guys are in trouble. So I like how they were voiced that way. I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but I did. And I like killing them. And they also said at the end, after you kill them, they say you now have the Sisters of Passion and Envy. They don't say you have killed or you have destroyed the Sisters of Passion and Envy. And this gets to my point that we're not destroying them or killing them. And that's why I have a control unit in my inventory for Esne. Anyway, I
Because
don't
now
know.
you have her. She's yours.
I have you now, Esne. Yes, that
That
is
is
true.
when you buy her for 2,400, whatever those things are.
2,400 shards. Yes, Iocath shards. Many, many shards. We also did a quick run through of Dread Fortress because we had extra time. And Corruptor Zero did love to hear us scream, which was always a highlight. And we creamed that place. We destroyed that place. We walked through there quite quickly, and then we went back in and did veteran mode Nephra just for good measure. So that was good. That was a good fun night. I'm glad I got back for that one because I was working late tonight again too. Anyway, we do have quite a bit of news to go through, so let us get to that.
Now an Imperial News Network report.
First up in the news, just a reminder, Narshana Nightlife, TikTok. This event is going to end on August 22nd when update 5.4 drops. I have not gone back and done much more gambling. I do not have enough golden certificates even to get the Rancor yet, and I certainly don't have the companion, Pigman. I am going to wait till August 21st and then freak out.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to wait till August 21st and then freak out. That's my plan.
And that's typically my plan for these kinds of things. Up until that time, I will say, I got plenty of time. And then I will freak out. What else is in the news, Seema?
So we got a little tidbit of news that currency, all types of currency are going to become legacy bound. So that'll mean the new currency that's coming on Umbara. It even means credits, so that you don't have to like log in your character, send credits to them, or log in your character and buy something and then legacy smuggle it. You'll just have access to it. That's kind of mind-blowing.
Sorry, I was looking up my mounts. Did you say what I wrote? I didn't hear.
No, I didn't. Max
So,
wrote the current sea of currency.
wait, what's up in the current sea of currency that we currently have to deal with, Seema? But she caught it. She caught it in the pre-read. Oh well. Also in the news, we saw some updates about launcher issues. Hopefully, most of those have been fixed. The continuing issues that people might have seen late in the week usually are to do with Windows XP and Vista. Hopefully that's all fixed now, but if you're still having problems, check in the support forums and potentially keep an eye out for additional fixes or workarounds. There was a workaround in Reddit, but it may not get you through in the long term. So if you did use that workaround, you may have to go back and check for what you need to do to make it really work. It had to do
Yeah,
with
I mean,
certificates.
it should be fixed now. I mean, we don't have support forums anymore, right? So if you want to post, you'd have to post in the thread I mean, it's called the launcher's not working or something. Um,
Official
because I
support
actually
does
went,
exist as part of the EA support
right,
forums,
that's right.
but that
But
so you can't go
I
there. But
actually visited the EA support this afternoon just out of curiosity, and I didn't find a lot of SWTOR related stuff there. So I don't
yeah,
know.
it's that's a good point. It is a little bit difficult to navigate. I have gone there and searched wrongly and not found very much, but there's a couple ways to go through the content there. So I don't know. Maybe that's a good tip for the future
But
of
maybe
how
if
to
you
really
put
get
like
these
a
support
ticket
forums.
in at support.ea.com, then they would, know what to do or would be familiar.
Yes.
That's always a possibility. But yes, also think about upgrading if you can, if you're one of those guys running Vista or XP, because I'm sure, I mean, there's many, many, many games that have already dropped their support for Windows XP and Vista,
Right.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
just the tech advice on that is, although it seems like, when Vista XP Vista 7, 8, 10, we're actually a couple versions past 10 right now. And soon we're going to have the fall creators update, which is about the third version past 10. We are quite far away from Vista and XP, man.
I
Come on,
mean,
Grandpa.
just to put it in perspective, one guy commented in the thread that I was reading that he had actually tried to follow some links at Microsoft to articles that he was trying to troubleshoot, and they had been removed from the Microsoft site.
Yeah. XP, yeah, upgrade that 286 and get you some Windows 10.
Let's see. Oh, cross-faction companion cosmetic gear. Someone on the forums requested it in the thread, and Keith responded saying, "We will have to take a look at that." Basically, what they're saying is, now that you can have Alara Doran, for instance, on the imp side, but the customizations that are available for her are on a pub side vendor, can we like merge those so that I can buy them now that I have imp side Alara, for example? Which makes perfect sense to me.
Sounds good to me. Yep. Do it. All right. Also in the news, continued discussion on PvP bolster. So there was a update from BioWare that said PvP bolster in the future is going to go to 242. And the reason for that is two things. One, bolster at 250 just makes gear completely worthless. Bolster too low makes the difference in top people's gear and people starting in PvP too great, and that doesn't feel good to new players jumping into PvP. 242, and I agree with their position on this, is a good balance where 242 gets you to one tier below top tier, the way sort of as close as it gets right now, or 1 to 1.5 tiers below the top tier. The difference between 242 and 246, for example, is not very great. So if everyone comes in at 242 because of bolster, and then you have a reason to be getting unassembled components and upgrading your gear, wanting to have gear progression and being rewarded for it, that seems like a good balance. It makes gear progression in PvP valid and worthwhile, and it makes the difference between those without gear and potentially no gear and those with the maximum gear not very great. So I'm fine with it. I know there's still dissent and discussion in that thread. You can continue to post notes in that thread, but making bolster go up to 250 just makes gear progression worthless, and why are we even getting unassembled components then?
Right. And I think Keith even said, that what they need to do is fix bolster.
So that it works exactly as intended, because there are situations where it's not optimal or it's overpowered slightly. Maybe that is the case. However, I don't really see it to being that much of a problem right now. So.
Right. I don't know. I just saw the comment. Speaking of comments, someone posted a question in asking, will we ever see SWTOR go back to sort of like regular MMO style development, like ops, for instance, an operation be delivered as a entire whole entity instead of like one boss at a time, or explorable planets that you can sort of fly to and walk around on, as as opposed to just sort of instance things. And Keith answered this post with a sort of big picture post of his own. And he said that, yes, absolutely, that's what we're getting back to. But we're coming out of a period where we were very, very focused on story. And in order to achieve this new direction, he called it a new direction, to change our direction, and this is a quote, we had to retool, reorganize, hire new talent, and get everyone on board with the change direction, which I thought, to me, was very interesting because first he used the term hire new talent. And then he said change of direction, which I thought that the overall direction was always to like go story for a while and then go MMO for a while. But this sounds like an actual change of direction, which is kind of what Keith's been saying all along, is like we're going to go forward doing all the things all the time, which I guess is a change in direction. But yeah, so basically saying, yeah, we absolutely do want to get back to that. It just takes a while because of the changes we had to make to change directions.
Yes. They had a very strong, and they've talked about this before, they had a very strong debate also in this change in directions. They knew they wanted to create a new operation, and they had a choice. Either release bosses along the way, get some ops content coming sooner, and get the story started on IOCath at the beginning of the summer, as they did, or wait until end of summer, fall, beginning of winter, and put out an operation all at once. So the question is not, why did you not just give us a full operation with 5 bosses at the beginning of the summer? That's not an option. It was never an option. That's not one of the choices. So your choices were, and their choices were, not your choices, but their choices were, do it the way they're doing it now, or no operations, potentially most of this calendar year. And they opted for a mechanism that I prefer. If I was asked, my suggestion would have been get some of this kind of ops content started as quickly as you can. If you got to do it now and you got to put this content out one boss at a time, I need that. My teams need that. My ops teams need that. We can't just run Eternity Vault and Karaga's Palace for another year. So I'm glad I've got Tyth and Esne and Avela to fight right now, even if it's only those 2 bosses. So out of those 2 choices, you can imagine a multiverse with there's a third choice where they invented a time machine and then they went back in time and then they started ops development and they could have released the operation right away. If that multiverse was overlaid with our current universe, they would have released the operation with 5 bosses.
They could have just done it in the cloud, though.
They couldn't do it in the cloud. Cloud computing. The AI could have done it. Why didn't you just buy more AIs? So yeah, that's the deal there with that specific question. But yeah, it's tough. It's a tough challenge, and it's something that they're now catching up on, and we are seeing content being developed. I like what's been done so far, and I hope to see more, and I will encourage that. And if they slow down or back off or don't do the rest of the operation anytime soon, I'll yell about it, and you'll hear me from far away. I don't know what. Anyway, also in the news, they did. Didn't you already mention this? You already mentioned.
Yeah, that's
cross-faction companion.
Yes,
that's what the
yes,
oops
it
was.
Twice. Yes.
Oops, Max, don't read this comment. Cross-faction companion. No, I am terrible. All right, what else?
Community Cantina in New York has a date now. So Community Cantina in New York City on October 6th. The venue is going to be Stitch NYC, which Zen mentioned before in the pre-show is where they have had it before. It's going to be from 7 to 10 in the evening, and they say arrive early, as they always do, because space is limited.
I don't know what Stitch is, but it sounds hot. It
Well,
sounds like
I
a
Googled,
happening place. Did you?
I
You Googled it?
Googled Stitch NYC, and they have a site. You can go look at pictures of it. So
Cool. Does it look cool? Does it look fun?
it looks extremely like a bar.
It looks bar-like in its entirety. All right.
Yes.
I would still go. I would especially go. I don't know however you want to say it. we've said this before, we've said it many times. If you have an opportunity to go to a cantina, they are cool events. I've been to one before. I went to the one that was in Chicago many years ago. They better get back to Chicago sometime soon. I really like the cantina events. It's fun, both because you're hearing directly from BioWare and the developers, and maybe Keith's going to be there, and maybe Eric's going to be there, but just as much, and I really liked this when I went, is interacting live face-to-face with local members, or not so local, of the SWTOR community. I met a lot of great people there. They told me all about their guilds and what they do and how they're friends in real life and how they love to do these kinds of things, and it was really, really great. So I would recommend it for that alone. Speaking of community and why it's so great, we had some community news going on this week. We talked about it a little bit last week. Every summer, our guild sets aside, and this is the greater AIE guild across all the games. So we're one of those sort of mega communities in many MMOs that were all being represented this week. We set aside a week out of the summer that we call Summer of Love, because we're a great community, and that's how we roll. And as part of that, we have events in all of the different games. So we had our big SWTOR event, our Star Wars event, on Tuesday. Wednesday we had, so this was just yesterday, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I did. All the days are belong to me in my mind all at once right now. So yesterday was a very special event that we have every year on or about August 2nd, which we call Remembrance Day. Our guild, our greater community, has been around for over 10 years now, and unfortunately we've lost real-life people, real-life friends from this earth as part of that progression over 10 years. Some really special people, some really great people, founders of the guild, people that helped start things up, and that's pretty sad. I'm really relatively close friends of mine, in fact. So we set aside one day every year where we get together in the games and we sort of talk in Discord and remember those people and hold little bits of in-game vigils and then shoot off fireworks at the end and sort of honor them. So we did that last night, and it's one of my favorite parts of the way we roll here in AIE and how it's a little bit different than other guilds and other groups. So that was yesterday, and then we are continuing throughout the week with Final Fantasy is going to have a big fest on Friday, and they have a couple more Fs that are part of that. I think Fashion and Fashionista is part of it, but they are effed up tomorrow. Is that what I meant to say? No, but Final Fantasy's got AIE in-game stuff tomorrow, and then over the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday are a few different events in World of Warcraft. They're having their version of Running of the Beef. They are doing a pet trade and show off. Seema, are you going to that on Sunday? Pet battles and pet trades. Yeah, Seema's a pet master.
I don't want to embarrass anybody there, though. You know,
an animal husbandry master of some kind, from what I understand. But yeah, lots of fun stuff. So that's what our summer events are in AIE, and I just wanted to throw that out there. What else we got going actually in SWTOR this week that our guild should be aware of, Seema?
Next week, Mandatory Fun Night was going to be on the pub side, so August 8th equal pub. Be there or not. Attendance is not mandatory.
Correct.
That's right. This week, Conquest is Titans of Industry. I almost said energy, which means basically craft all the things. There's the notable one-time things is you can kill 100 NPCs on CZ-198 or 250 of them on Quesh or in the Black Hole. And that's pretty much it for Conquest.
Yep, and to finish this part of the segment, as we always do, if you are not in AIE and you would like to come join our guild, you can find guild information at aie-guild.org. You can catch us on Twitter. You can catch officers of Star Wars in Discord, and you can get that information off our main guild website. I think you might have to dig for it a little bit, but just check in with me sometime, and I can get you there as well. And we are on Jedi Covenant, and we have a chat channel, custom chat channel, on both the Republic and Imperial sides. It's /cjoinaieLFO, AIE looking for officer, and you will find us, and we will get you an invite. And shout out to the chat room. We've got a bunch of people in the chat room. I saw some comments from the SWTOR feed as well. So thank you for some of the extra news there. Heads up, secret news that came out from the SWTOR feed to the chat room. Somebody was asking on the way in, when will we get news about the PvP brackets? Maybe it'll come tomorrow. We don't know yet. But that was a little bit of a inside hint that we seem to be getting there in the public feed of our chat room earlier today. But yeah, thanks and thumbs up to the chat room. You guys always make it easy and fun to sort of do the show when we know that you guys are backing us up there. So thanks. And with that, to merge or not to merge?
Difficult to see. Always emotion is the future.
I don't know. That's all I had queued up. I don't know why that's the sound effect that was still queued up from last week. As I said, I'm not firing on all cylinders, as whatever the case may be this week. Anyway, there is a long discussion thread going on the forums all about server merge and, hey, BioWare, when are you going to tell us more about server merges and why is this not more of a discussion? We are going to talk about that a little bit, and we're going to talk about it in a couple different ways. The things that we've heard so far, the things that we see in that thread, the things that we're hearing right now that BioWare is saying, and what we've seen in other places and pros and cons to server merges and what we think about it. So to kick it off, Seema, what's your thought on server merges? Do you, I mean, you know, for better or for worse, we're a little bit lucky on Jedi Covenant. It's not that much of an issue for us, but why don't you start with your perspective and we'll go from there.
So what is motivating this in people's mind? First of all, it was a discussion topic that Keith and Eric put out. Or actually, I don't know if it was actually a discussion topic, but they started the thread because they closed down a previous thread. But why people are wanting a server merge is because they feel that it will solve a problem for them. Mostly the problem boils down to having other people to play with, which is measured by having to wait a long time in queues for PvP, for Galactic Starfighter, and for any other kind of PvE stuff that you would queue for. So it's been mentioned a few times that cross-server queuing is not going to be a thing, that there's not the infrastructure in place for that. And that's why people are pushing for server merges, because cross-server queuing isn't going to be a thing.
Yep.
So they see the benefit of that being that,
yeah,
right.
And that's,
I mean, so
that's the key
people
challenge.
tell stories. If you go through the whole thread, people tell stories of, you know, being in the queue for an hour and then, you know, having to go to work. So
Right.
basically for them, the queue never popped at all.
Right. And that's a challenge. When you don't have people on a server to play with, it makes it quite a challenge for you. Now, I just saw a note in the chat room, and this is sort of the flip side of this. Lee in the chat room said, well, frack, which is an awesome word. Not more server merges. Another round of names I'll lose and have to rename alt. This is part of the other side, and this is something that BioWare is looking very hard at. So that's a good point, and that's one of the downsides to doing things like server merges. So we could say, hey, there are some low pop servers right now, and why don't we just merge those servers? There are a lot of implications to that and a lot of challenges associated with that. They're thinking through all that, and that's why this certainly is not a light decision and has not happened and is not scheduled at this point until all of those types of considerations are not only thought about, but they've gone further. And what we've seen from Keith and others in these threads is we do want to think through all of these kinds of things and ensure that we're doing the right thing along a number of those points that would be points of friction in merging servers. Character names is a key one, so that's on their list. So here's Keith replying to this thread, and he's saying, yes, losing of character names is one of the key points we are still discussing. If this were ever to happen, if this was to work this way, we know there's issues to resolve, including but not limited to name collisions, establishing some sort of priority system, potentially purging old names beforehand, players attempting to reserve names, whether that's in a positive or negative way. I'm not sure what he's referring to there, but he knows, and they all know, that we all have character names we want to preserve, and it has been painful in the past, and this is a key factor in your overall decisions. I think there are a couple things that make this a little bit easier these days that I think we can think about, which is that we got the space available, so you can have sort of the two-part names now. That makes it a little easier. I don't like the idea of losing any character names. I don't like the idea of having to start using special characters. Nobody does, and that's something I really hope that gets worked out in some sort of creative way if this were to go forward. Now, this will be specific, though, and hopefully limited to the places where there's already a low population of players. So I'm sure they would be trying to work it to impact the least number of people possible as well. But that's not the only issue. That's not the only bit of friction. So there's also a significant number of guild issues. Do you want to talk through some of those? I mean, just imagine trying to move our guild to a new server.
Yeah. In previous times they did a server merge, there were no guild flagships, so that was not really an issue. But this time there would be. In fact, there's like 2 years worth more stuff that people have accumulated, and that is one concern that people in guilds have, is that they don't want to lose. Well, obviously you don't want to lose your flagship or parts of your flagship, and you don't want to lose the decos. Nobody wants to put them all out again, for sure. And the same goes for just strongholds in general. People don't want to have to redecorate their strongholds. But also with every kind of asset that guilds have, like what's in their guild bank, for instance, that's a concern. What happens to all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when we got moved to Jedi Covenant, it was an appreciable amount of work to, I mean, I wasn't an officer then, but I remember that it was pretty much a deal.
I mean, look at all of these chairs that I would have to creatively replace. This would be literally mind-numbing. If I had to replace all of these chairs. But yeah, we've got guild ships to worry about. We've got decorations to worry about. We have to just worry about redecoing things, because there would be potentially collisions. I have strongholds on lots of different servers. So say we were going to merge with, I mean, this probably wouldn't happen because they're two of the biggest servers, unless we were going to do all one big mega server, which we'll talk about in a second. But if Jedi Covenant was going to merge with Harbinger, I have a Droman Kos and a Coruscant on both Jedi Covenant and on Harbinger. Now, my Harbinger ones aren't very decorated, but they could be. I could have decorated them. And what's going to happen then?
Not only strongholds, but they have full legacy cargo holds on both planets too. I mean, both servers too. So it's what do you do with all that inventory?
Yep. Yeah. So that's certainly a challenge. Then certainly something that needs to be considered and thought about, and they are. I mean, they just enumerated it explicitly. These are things we're talking about. So,
and there's a number of people that, you know, responded in the thread that not even guild issues, that they like the server, they like the community, their friends are there, the server has a certain culture. They don't want to move to a new server with a different culture, even if all their friends do come with them.
Right. This is where we get to that point of, I'm on a small server and I like it. I like that there's nobody around. This is also a point where we get the creative community of role players raising their head in creative ways. And this, every time some thread comes up, I read this, and I'm not against it in any way, but I always see the most interesting perspectives and sometimes the most contrary perspectives from role players. And there's a significant population of role players that are saying, hey, we've got this space carved out and it's relatively unpopulated, and we like this server for this reason, because then we do our role play events in open areas on planets, on Ilum and on Tatooine, and in the Blood Sands on Tatooine, and we can do that. Whereas if we went to Harbinger, we couldn't do that because people would grief us all day. So
Right.
I think that's an interesting flip side of this, that if ever you want to make a change to the game, you can bet that there's some interesting reason role players do not want you to do that.
Then, for all the people who do want server merges, there's an argument that goes back and forth amongst them, that is, why don't you just transfer then? If you want to be on the Harbinger, why don't you just transfer? It only costs 90 cartel coins. And that doesn't suit people either, because, and you can tell it's two different types of players, right? Because if you're the player that's always queuing, you're maybe not in a guild, you don't have a lot of social connections in the game, yeah, just transfer. Problem solved. But a lot of people feel that they're, for want of a better word, stuck on the server where they are because that's where they've built their SWTOR life. And transferring their character over isn't going to solve their problem.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it was somebody in one of the
Oh,
threads
it's gone
said,
back up? Yeah. 1,000 CC.
But somebody in one of the threads said, well, why don't you just make it free? They've practically made it free in the past, and it hasn't solved the issue. So that's, it's been that, it was as low as 90 for a long time, and that has not solved the issue. So why, but, on the other side, why would we want to merge servers, and why is it a good idea? Why should we merge servers? Why is that interesting? I think it is interesting myself. I would like to merge all of the servers and have one giant mega server. This happens in other MMOs. Other MMOs do have just a single server, or maybe a single server per hemisphere. So maybe there's 2 servers in the world or 3 servers in the world. There is technology, and Star Wars has done a good job from the engineering perspective of doing the thing where, even though it's one giant server, and this is sort of how Harbinger works, besides the point where Harbinger crashes all the time, that's a side issue. But as you go to a planet and there's too many people on Droman Cost map number 1, well, then a Droman Cost map number 2 comes up, and then a Droman Cost map number 3 comes up. But when you want to play GSF at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday night, Tuesday morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can. And wow, that would be sort of interesting. I would love to be able to just jump in and have GSF and PvP and ranked PvP anytime I want it. That would be kind of interesting. And then, once you've got many people in PvP queues and GSF queues and master mode flashpoint queues, well, then you might be able to start doing balanced groups and queue comparison and matching, and have some of those algorithms that in theory may already be in there actually working.
Right.
That sounds really interesting to me. It would make things like Conquest a lot more challenging as well. So that's another thing on the flip side they mentioned. It would make things like the mega guilds stomping everybody more difficult, but
They'd have to stomp each other.
Yeah. And and maybe your small guild would never make the Conquest board again, but you can all get your individual targets, and maybe that's how it'll have to be.
I mean, if that's really a problem, they could make it top 20.
Right, sure. Yeah, actually, yeah, okay, let's make it a top 20 or a top 50. I don't know. There's you're right. There you go. Seema just solved it. Genius, I tell you. But yeah, I like that idea. So what are other ways to do that without one giant server? Let's talk about that. Can you name one for me, Seema?
Well,
what would
Blizzard
be better?
The way Blizzard does it is they have various realms, but they have this sharding tech that allows them to share zones when they need to for population reasons. So you can go into a zone and seamlessly, I'm doing air quotes, you don't know what server you're on necessarily at that point. If you go to a
Right.
zone that on your server doesn't have anybody in it and you walk into it, you may be sharing it with somebody from another server. And you can tell by how their names are in the screen. But it's gotten to the point in WoW anyway that you really never know which server you're actually on. It's just invisible to you. Like it's the first time you switch servers because of population regions, it doesn't mean that when you walk out of the zone you pop back to your own server, because there's no reason for you to change servers at that point, according to the technology anyway.
Yeah.
If you group up then with one of your friends, then yes, you'll be on the same shard and you'll be able to see each other and stuff. But they have the framework for that. I mean, they also have cross-server queuing, and they have it's almost like their server system is a mesh.
Yeah.
So,
And that's very complicated from an engineering perspective. So we're not
and
suggesting that that's necessarily even possible with the way the current architecture is set up. But
it's not without its issues either,
right. Right.
because
It is. A lot of weird things happen, don't they?
like if you're like for instance, you could you could be leaning over to mine a resource node and get shifted to another shard that doesn't have that node in it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it just
all
kind
the
of fades
time.
out. Or
All the
you can
time.
be, hunting down that rare mob, and you finally see a spawn of it, and then you get sharded off. So,
Yep.
yeah, it doesn't happen a lot, but it does have its issues as well.
The server, the chat room mentioned cross server. So this is what Blizzard is doing there is even beyond cross server, but simply cross server is another just one step towards that, but one implementation of itself that would be interesting, and that would be just for the queues, and you could potentially just do it for PvP or just do it for PvP and GSF, where when you get into a queue for that, all the different servers are queuing up into a queue that goes to a special place, a special server just for PvP instances, and that's how cross-server queuing can happen. That's probably slightly easier to engineer than this whole weird phasing sharding thing, but again, is still a significant engineering challenge and potentially not worth the return on investment. Potentially. Although it seems like we would want it, what if it would mean no new content for 18 months in order to get that in terms of development budget? Is that a trade-off we're willing to make? I don't know if that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. So that's the kind of thing I'm sure that's going into the calculus of should we even attempt something like that. So it's a big challenge. That idea of should we just go to a mega server, or should we try something like cross server, or what should happen? Other things for pros and cons in terms of server merges versus not server merges. One thing that came up that I liked a discussion on, and that you had some good points on, was new players. So I'm a new player to Star Wars. I'm a new player to the game. Whenever I pick some random server, I don't know, Jawa's butt server with 10 people on it.
I question your judgment there.
I think
New player.
the Jawa's butt. I think that's a server. So I jump on the Jawa's butt. Wow, this is really going bad. So I jumped on the Jawa's butt, and I get on there. There's 10 players. I can never even get a group. There's one guild, and they don't want me. Wow, this isn't a great experience for me as a new player. I'm gonna
Right. Or
quit.
you ask a question in general and there's no response.
Or everybody only talks like a Jawa because it's Jawa's butt server. And they only use movie names with Jawa in the title as the general chat. Anyway, that's a bad experience for new players. It's a bad experience for players that are coming to the MMO that you would potentially want to stick around and become part of the community. However, Seema laid some knowledge on me about a potential workaround to that, even in the current system, to protect new players. And what is that, Seema?
I don't know if it's knowledge or not, but I was just saying they could funnel new players to whichever server they please, so that then the new servers wouldn't end up in the low pop server. New players wouldn't end up in the low pop server.
Correct. So an option here that is implemented in other places is, what if we already pick
you
ahead of
started
time?
something, Max.
I know, and I'm getting distracted by it in the chat room. Lock, stock, and two smoking Jawas. Actually, that's
I
my
like
favorite
that
so
one.
far. Is potentially, even now, if you look at it, there might be an optimal server for new players to go join. Maybe it's a higher population server, but not the highest. Maybe it's a server that's the least toxic community of all the servers. So maybe there's an opportunity right now for BioWare to be taking this action where you don't get a choice. If you're brand new to the game, if you've never created a character on any of the servers, that maybe it's not, maybe you're not limited because maybe you have friends that are inviting you to come play on a server. But if you don't know and you don't make that very explicit that you know exactly where you mean to be, and I mean to be where I mean to be, if you don't, then you would get funneled to an optimal server for new players so that they have both a good experience and a good community and queues and things like that, and options for guild. And I would recommend Jedi Covenant for those new players, by the way. Jedi Covenant is awesome. So yeah, that was a good idea, Seema, and I think that's something we can that we can talk about in more detail, or that we can recommend to BioWare in more detail. Through the back channel bat phone that we don't have.
Yeah, right. I was just gonna say, yeah. Let's get right on that.
It will never happen. What else? So
I can't stop reading chat.
Just to be clear, there is 186. No, more than that. Why am I just hitting here? Last 192 pages of discussion in the server merge discussion thread up on the official forums. See, all the way up to 192. So this is an interesting topic to many, many people.
I would like to see some stats on how many people are posting in it.
I have heard BioWare talk in the past about statistics. I would expect, and you know, I work in enterprise consulting, we recommend not making any decisions unless it's backed by the data. I would bet they're looking at the data about what really happens, what really is low population, how long do the server queues take, how many people are potentially expressing interest and that kind of thing. Yeah, what stats do you want to say?
Well, I just meant on that thread. That's 192 pages. Was it 5 people or is it 500 people?
Oh.
I mean, it's not, yeah.
So even analytics and metrics within that thread, who's actually posting. So yeah, it could be 192 pages of the same 5 people posting back and forth. You're stupid. No, you are. No, you are. Yeah, that could very well
I mean,
be
there is some back and forth.
Yeah.
I know it's not just the same 5 people, but 192 pages could be misleading if it's the same 100 people.
Right. It could be. Although 192 regardless is quite a bit
there's
of
interest in the issue for sure.
Integration Arch here on page 182 said agreed. So we got that going for us. I think that's 192 pages in, 182 pages in, and somewhere up above in the 20 posts per page is 181 pages before this, something in there Integration Arch agreed to. So we got that going for us, which is nice. Yeah, okay. So as
that reminds me of in the thread about the launcher, where people couldn't get in because of the launcher. Someone posted in the thread, "There goes my playtime before work. Thanks for nothing, Eric."
Yes.
Yeah, like that. It's all Eric. He
Yes,
could have fixed
please.
it, but he had his coffee instead.
That's like thanks Obama.
Yeah, it is like thanks for nothing, Eric. It's like shut up, Natasha.
Eric Bama. Thanks, Eric Bama. Yeah, just blame it on Eric. He can take it though. That yeah, that guy. If there was ever someone designed and excellent at his job as a community manager, able to take it, and he's talked about that in the past about sort of the history of how he's got that positive attitude. He can take it. So go ahead, unleash your wrath on Eric.
You heard it here, folks.
He'll take that for you. He'll take one for the team, and come back smiling on our behalf. So Eric, fix the servers, they're broken. Yeah, Eric. All right. So I think that is a good sort of summary back and forth in our thoughts on server merges. To sum it up, Seema, do you want server merges or not? One mega server or not, or leave it the way it is? You have to decide now.
I don't.
And you have to tell Eric to do it.
I would say that we need to do it because we can't really go forward, and we can't really afford to have fractionally populated servers that have to be supported by BioWare. So I would
Agreed.
say consolidate.
Merge all the servers. That's what I say. Eric, make it so. All right. I think with that, our EPC 205, that's like 16 episodes away from 4 years or something like, or one episode away. I don't know. -3 episodes away from 4 years. Anyway, EPC 205 is ready to head out and get merged with this escape pod so he can broadcast the podcast to all of you. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight on newoverlords.com, on iTunes, YouTube, or live here on Twitch, even potentially hosted on the SWTOR channel, which is really cool. We will stream again next Thursday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 p.m. Central. Please follow us on Twitter @MaxTheGray and @AIESEMA. Please subscribe on YouTube so we know how many people are watching there. And come find us on Jedi Covenant before it gets merged and ask us for an AIE Guild invite. And we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.